Hello, Private Diary. I'm Zoe. I was born into an ordinary family. Even though we weren't rolling in it, we were happy. The only thing I felt was missing was a little sister I could play with. That's why I kept begging my parents to buy me one. Please, let's go to the special store and get me a sister. Zoe, that's not where babies come from. Besides, we won't have money to provide for another baby. Why don't we buy you a doll instead? I don't want a doll. I want a sister. No matter how much I pouted, they didn't give in. But the universe must have heard me. I was playing in a sandbox not far from home when I heard a baby quietly crying. Can you imagine? I carefully looked into the bushes and found a baby lying there. When the baby saw me, she immediately stopped crying and giggled. That chance meeting changed my whole life. Guys, we're getting to the good part. But before I continue, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and prepare some snacks. Imagine the faces of my parents when I came home with the baby in my arms, squealing with joy. Mom, Dad, now I know where babies come from. They grow in the bushes. Look, this is my new sister. My parents' eyes bugged out, and they immediately called Uncle Jack. He was a police officer, and he always came to our rescue. Our whole precinct is looking for her parents. I'm sure we'll find them. While the police were investigating, the baby stayed with us. We even gave her a name, Barbara. Several weeks went by, but Barbara's parents seemed to have vanished into thin air. During that time, my parents and I had grown so attached to the baby that Mom and Dad decided to adopt her. Congratulations, Zoe. Now you're an older sister, just like you've always wanted. Yay! Barbara, we're going to be the best of friends. We were inseparable, like two Twix sticks. I loved playing with my little sister. One day, we were lying on our lawn watching the clouds when Barbara found a 4-leaf clover. That's a good luck omen. Really? Wow. I'll always carry it with me then. My sister hid the clover and we kept playing. Things were going great, and I felt like I was living in paradise. However, over time, I noticed that Barbara never struggled with anything. She was better than me in everything. She did better than me at school, she had more friends, and our parents praised her more than me. At first, I felt jealous and didn't say anything. But one day, Barbara crossed a line when she stole my hobby. She decided to try her hand at cooking. Of course, she was brilliant at it. My cakes looked like charred bricks, but she created works of art. That was the last straw for me. No offense, Zoe, but you couldn't pay me to try your cake. Do you want me to show you how it's done? Did you hear that? My younger sister dared to try and teach me. After that incident, I regretted ever bringing her home and hated Barbara in silence. All I wanted to do was show her her place. We started to compete with each other. Barbara didn't even know we were doing it. That didn't stop her from easily beating me time after time. Zoe, have you failed a test again? Don't cry. Not everyone could be as smart as me. I wanted to slap the living daylights out of her. Now she was bragging on top of everything else? That was it. I'd had enough. It was time to topple that queen from her throne. At first, I decided to remind my parents they only had one daughter. To do that, I ordered a family portrait for their wedding anniversary. However, there were only 3 people in it. I mean, Barbara's adopted. She's not really part of our family. My sister knew she was adopted, but it still hurt her to hear that. She burst into tears and ran into her room. Instead of thanking me for the gift, Mom and Dad scolded me. Zoe, how could you say that to Barbara? You should be ashamed of yourself. They grounded me and spent the evening comforting Barbara. That was the opposite of what I wanted. Dang it! Next, I decided to ruin my sister's reputation at school. To do that, I pretended to be Barbara and sent all our classmates fake answers to an upcoming test. A simple but devious plan, right? When everyone flunks the test, they'll be so mad at Barbara. Unfortunately, I was in for a disappointment again. My sister found out that people were pretending to be her and sending everyone fake answers and told the principal about it. It took him no time to figure out I was the one to blame. In the end, I had to attend extra classes and Barbara was praised for her honesty. Well done, Barbara. You're the pride of our school. Why did she always get lucky? I was fuming. There was only one other thing I could think of to mess with Barbara. I had to make our mutual friends hate her. Oh, the irony. I was the one who introduced my sister to them in the first place. They liked her so much they started hanging out with her more often than with me. You can't imagine how horrible it feels when your own sister steals your friends. That day, I decided to put my plan into motion. Barbara baked a cake shaped like her head for a pastry contest. It looked really freaking impressive. I wasn't going to envy her in silence anymore, though. Instead, I invited all of our friends over and decided to prank my little sister. What a cute cake! Guys, let's see what Barbara's got inside her head. Oh, it's just as I feared. No brains. Only chocolate cream. Anyone want a piece? My friends frowned at me and no one laughed. At that moment, Barbara walked into the kitchen and screamed in horror. Zoe! You ruined my cake for the contest! I spent 10 hours on it! My friends got mad at me and said I pulled a dumb prank. It's a stupid joke, Zoe. I think you're just jealous of your sister. In the end, they turned away from me and helped Barbara bake a new cake. I locked myself in my room and screamed into the pillow. Ugh! Why did my sister always get lucky? It was like she had some sort of lucky charm. When I was going to the bathroom to brush my teeth that evening, I passed by my sister's room and accidentally looked into her room. Barbara was lying on the bed and twirling a dried four-leaf clover in her hands. Had she really kept it all those years? That's when it dawned on me. Of course! That was the secret to her success. I deserved a bit of luck too, so I decided to steal Barbara's amulet come hell or high water. As soon as my sister left her room, I snuck in and started looking for the clover. Then I heard someone cough behind me. What are you doing? At that moment, something in me snapped and I told Barbara the truth. I'm looking for your lucky clover. It's the reason everything comes easy to you. What are you talking about? You ruined my life. I wish I'd never found you. Do you really think you'll be better off without me? I nodded and my sister smiled sadly. She pulled the clover from under her pillow and handed it to me. If you think that's the secret to my success, then take it. The clover is yours now. I'll disappear from your life. Of course, I didn't think she was serious, so I went to bed feeling like a winner. But the next morning, I was awoken by my parents. They were worried out of their minds. It turned out Barbara had packed all her things at night and left without a word. She didn't leave a note. Her phone was turned off and no one knew where she could be. Mom and Dad were running around the house and panicking, but I was sure that my sister was just trying to teach me a lesson. She's probably just hiding. I'm sure she'll come back as soon as she gets hungry. However, a few days went by and Barbara was nowhere to be found. Even I started to worry. My parents called Uncle Jack and asked him for help. However, even the police couldn't do anything. Barbara seemed to have vanished into thin air. One evening, I overheard a strange conversation between my parents and Uncle Jack. What about the house opposite the abandoned cinema? You know who lives there. Could they have Barbara? We checked the house on Green Street first. Barbara wasn't there. I'm worried sick. Please let our girl be all right. It all seemed terribly suspicious to me. What did the house on Green Street have to do with Barbara? I didn't ask my parents anything. What I feared most was admitting Barbara was missing because of me. Some more time had passed, and there was still no news about my sister. It was like a thundercloud hung over Mom and Dad. They were completely depressed and only sad for days. Everyone at school missed Barbara and only had good things to say about her. Barbara's so kind. She always helped me, even if I called her at night. My friends called me every day and asked if Barbara had been found. To be honest, I missed Barbara too. I realized she'd never actually done anything to hurt someone. I shouldn't have said so many nasty things to her. The guilt was eating me alive. I had to find my sister. My friends and I hung her photos all over the city. I wrote hundreds of posts on social media and asked people to help me find Barbara. I knew my sister wouldn't answer, but I still texted her and begged her for forgiveness every day. Barb, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'm not better off without you. Please come back. I even asked the four-leaf clover for luck out of desperation, but it was all for nothing. And then I realized that the dried plant had nothing to do with luck at all. And then one sunny morning, Barbara came back. Can you believe it? She was beaming. Ta-da! Look who's here! We were on cloud 9. Mom and Dad pulled Barbara into a bear hug and bombarded her with questions. I was done for. I was sure Barbara would tell them she'd run away from home because of me, and I would be in a world of trouble. Except, for some reason, Barbara didn't rat me out. Instead, she said she'd left to find herself. And I did! I went to Hollywood and starred in the pastry contest show. I took first place and won a ton of money. They're going to air the show soon. Gordon Ramsay suggested I get my own show. Can you believe it? We're going to be filthy rich soon! Mom and Dad did not scold Barbara for disappearing without a word after hearing that. I breathed a sigh of relief. That could have been a disaster. After that, Barbara started to throw money around and bought our parents everything they could have only dreamed of in the past. She gave Mom a jacuzzi and bought Dad a brand new car. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Barbara. Girls, get in. Let's go for a ride. We got into the car. While Dad was happily driving us around the city, I looked out the window and tried to stay positive. On the one hand, I was glad Barbara was back, but on the other hand, I felt like I was living in her shadow again. All the trials only made her stronger and cooler. I was starting to hate her again. My sister seemed to sense how tense I'd become and suddenly handed me a stack of cash. Quit frowning or you'll get wrinkles. Here, get yourself something nice. I proudly refused to take that pathetic handout. Barbara smiled slyly and said softly, "You said I was just lucky, but I succeeded without any help to prove you wrong. How does it feel to lose?" Terrible. After that, it was clear my sister was just mocking me. I wanted Barbara out of my life more than ever. Let her be successful and rich somewhere else. All I wanted was for her to stay away from my family. I wished I could find Barbara's real parents. She could move in with them and stop getting on my nerves. Unfortunately, seeing as even the police couldn't find find my sister's relatives, I definitely stood no chance. That evening, Uncle Jack came over for dinner, and I remembered the strange conversation I'd overheard. It was time to get to the bottom of it. I cornered Uncle Jack and asked him who lived in the mysterious house opposite the abandoned cinema. Didn't your parents tell you? Barbara's real parents live there. What the what? You found them? You didn't know? Oh, my big mouth. Okay, so here's what happened. He said the police had managed to find my sister's real family, but by that time, my mom and my dad had already decided to adopt Barbara, so they didn't contact her biological parents. I couldn't believe my luck. That was exactly what I needed. The very next day, I came to the house on Green Street. I wanted Barbara's parents to come over to our place. They could reunite with their daughter and we would all be happy. Of course, I would be the happiest of them all. However, when I arrived at the address, I saw a lopsided, dilapidated house. Yikes. I plucked up the courage and knocked on the door. An incredibly rude and unpleasant couple opened the door. Who are you? What do you need? I'm your daughter's adoptive sister. Can we talk? Okay, come on in. The house looked even worse inside than it did outside. Barbara's parents turned out to be absolutely terrible. They didn't bother denying that they had abandoned their daughter because they wanted to live without a care in the world. I was speechless. How could they care so little for their own child? I hesitated. Should I protect Barbara from the truth or tell her terrible relatives about the recent rise to fame to get rid of her? I didn't know what to do. At that very moment, Barbara herself walked in carrying huge bags. Mom, Dad, I've brought groceries. Finally! Couldn't you buy more? Those greedy and arrogant scumbags snatched the bags out of her hands. I could only stare in shock. Then Barbara finally noticed me. Zoe, what are you doing here? I should be asking you that. We stepped aside and my sister sadly told me that a few years ago, she'd accidentally found out from Uncle Jack who her real parents were. I got to know them and realized I have a terrible heredity. Ever since that day, I did everything to get better. After all, the only person who could help me succeed was myself. I realized that Barbara had always worked hard to achieve success. While I slept in, my sister would study and try to improve her cooking skills. Barbara also helped our friends a lot so they would love her. Luck had nothing to do with it. My sister achieved everything by herself. When I got rich, I started helping my biological parents even though they never once thanked me for it. But your words hurt me the most, Zoe. I've always wanted my older sister to be proud of me, but you thought I was just lucky because of a stupid clover. I'm sorry, Barbara. I was blinded by envy. Deep down, I've always been proud of you. Really? You can't imagine how much I needed to hear that. We hugged and even shed a tear, and then I realized it was time to look after my little sister. Your biological parents are terrible people and don't deserve you. Forget about them. Let's go home. The first episode of your show is about to be aired. Let's watch it together. I'm all for it. We held hands and went outside. I pulled the dried clover out of my pocket and handed it to my sister. Perhaps it didn't bring good luck, but it's still your lucky charm. Keep it, Zoe. My real lucky charm is you. After all, you found me and called me your little sister. I squeezed her hand tighter and almost burst into tears again. We didn't always get along, but I knew we could do anything if we worked together. Have you ever envied your siblings? Tell me in the comments down below, and don't forget to like this video. I love you, Zoe. I love you too, little sister.